Prothalamion by Edmund Spenser. Let me introduce the author to you. Edmund Spenser was born in 1552 and he lived in the Elizabethan England. He was a poet for excellence. He has the greatest name in English literature after Geoffrey Chaucer. He was remembered for his masterpiece, The Faerie Queene. His other works are Shepherdess Calendar, Colin Clouds Come Home Again, Epithalamion, Prothalamion, etc. Let us see the background of the poem. Spenser lived in Elizabethan England. This period is considered to be the greatest in the annals of world literature. After long years of strife, finally England was living a relatively peaceful period in its history. So there is peace in Elizabethan period. Being a scholar, Queen Elizabeth supported the revival of learning. The Elizabethan age was an age when men lived intensely, thought intensely, and wrote intensely. So this is the period when Spenser lived. Now let us discuss about the poem Prothalamion. This poem was written in 1596. The word Thalamion comes from thalamus, which means the bridal chamber. And this poem, Prothalamion, was written to celebrate the double marriage of the two daughters of Edward Somerset. The two daughters are Elizabeth Somerset and Catherine Somerset. Elizabeth was to marry Henry Gifford and Catherine was to marry William Peter. Spenser named this poem Prothalamion because this was written before the marriage. The poem has a pastoral setting, that is, the banks of River Thames and the River Lee. The poem comprises of 10 stanzas, each of 18 lines. All through the 10 stanzas we find the same refrain with slight variations. Let's get into the summary of this poem, Prothalamion. In the first stanza, Spenser is walking through the banks of the River Thames. He tells the reader that he is in a very sad mood. So, to ease his pain, he came for a casual walk. Even in that mood, he notices the flowers on either sides of the river are in full bloom. And he considers those flowers are dainty gems. These flowers are beautiful and fit enough to decorate the bridal bowers of young maidens. In the second stanza, Spenser sees a flock of nymphs by the riverside. Nymphs are a mythological spirit of nature, imagined as a beautiful maiden inhabiting woods, rivers, or other locations. So, these nymphs have got little baskets and all of them are busily plucking flowers. Throughout this stanza, Spenser gives us the catalogue of the flowers in their baskets. In the third stanza, Spenser describes the beautiful scene, that is, down the river comes two gliding white beautiful swans. Now, these two swans are considered as the two young ladies, Catherine and Elizabeth. Spenser also makes an allusion from the Greek mythology, Jove and Leda, his lover. But remember, these two swans are ladies, not lovers. Spenser describes the beauty of the two swans. He says that the two swans are as white as the snow on Pindus mountain. The river god says to be careful and not to dirt the two swans. Moving on to stanza 4. So here nymphs who were plucking the flowers stopped and gazed at these birds, and they thought that these two swans are the chariots of god Venus, because they feel that earthly beings cannot be so beautiful. In stanza 5, the nymphs with more wonder throws the plucked flowers on those swans. So now the river is covered with beautiful and colorful flowers, and it looks like a bridal chamber. So now the nymphs goes near to the swans and decorate them with fresh flowers. So moving on to stanza 6, one of the nymphs sings and wishes the swans, because the two ladies, Catherine and Elizabeth, are also going to getting married. and they hope that they should have a beautiful life. So the other nymphs also wishes the same. Now, in stanza 7, the river is moving slowly with care to these two swans. And all the water bodies living in that river flocks around these birds. And here Spencer makes a beautiful comparison of these two birds with Cynthia, that is, moon. Like moon that outshines all the little stars, the swans also outshines all the other creatures. In stanza 8, the two swans reached London. Here Spencer mentioned London as Merry London, and he says that London is his most kindly nurse. So here we can see Spencer's love for London. In this stanza, Spencer mentioned few landmarks here, like Bricky Flowers, Essex House, etc. Spencer mentioned his patron, Dudley, who is the Earl of Leicester, and he is no more. If he is alive, he could have helped him out in difficult times. And Spencer misses him a lot. In stanza 9, Spencer talks about a noble peer, that is, second Earl of Essex, and how he led a military expedition in Spain. So, in this stanza, Spencer is using an opportunity to praise Queen Elizabeth also, and he calls her the Great Eliza. So, finally, in stanza 10, the swans reached their destination. Now, Edward Somerset is coming down the banks to welcome his beautiful daughters, and he is compared to the Venus because of his glorious radiance. Spencer also mentions the two young men who are the bridegrooms. Now, Spencer is praising the bridegrooms that they are intelligent and handsome, and he compares these two young men to the twins of love. So now the two young men come forward and receive their mates. Here ends this poem. Read the poem to get its true essence. Thank you.